Morning, everyone. We'll be starting here shortly. It's a beautiful Montana day. Yes, we have smoke in the skies. It's my understanding from Land Board yesterday, we have 5 major fires that are in our state at this time. Uh, by any landowner's experience, any fire, of course, is major, but that's the one that's being recorded. You can get on the DNRC webpage, and you should be able to see links of where they are in any vicinity that we have in our schools. So if I'm looking here, we've got another minute before we start. We have a robust agenda with 7 items, but we've got great experts that will quickly and efficiently go through this, as we all have work to do even on this beautiful day in July. Right, let's go ahead and begin. As we have our expert with ESSER, and we have Wendy that is going to be sharing with us where we are. Just for everyone's understanding, we have had this since pretty much June of 2020, and our closeout is coming on the end of September with our schools. But Wendy has had a great team, still has a team that is working through a relationship with all of our schools as they complete this interesting gift to our schools. And so, Wendy, I'll let you go ahead. We do have a Board of Public Ed that is tomorrow as well that you'll be presenting to. But Wendy, let's go ahead and talk about our ESSER.
Thank you, Superintendent. So as we are closing out ESSER, we have Andines. Both of those were fundings that were given to our schools in the non-public and the public side. And there are several things that we're doing in the closeout process. We have just sent out about 500 individual emails directly to schools and recipients, letting them know here's what the status is of your current spend down. So how much balance do you have? What are the projects that you have? And also in those discussions, we've been noting with schools how they can use the data that has been collected along the way, how they can use that going forward. So how can they use how they've spent the funds in the past to help get them grants and other opportunities as they go forward? Because it's not just about closing the door on a funding stream, but also in terms of keeping it open or keeping it moving forward into other areas of opportunity. So we're doing both the emails were sort of a starting process for that discussion, and now we'll be having individual Zoom meetings or in-person meetings with schools to finish out that whole closeout. In addition to helping them look forward to the future and how they can use the data, the other thing we're helping them do is sort of creating a binder for ESSER so that if they end up in an audit situation, or if someone later comes along and says, so how much were you allocated, under what conditions, what did you use it for, they've got a place to go to. And while I reference it as a binder, I do so because sometimes districts want it in an electronic version and sometimes they want it on a hard copy. We all have different modes of feeling comfortable with the data we've got. So we're helping them create that information. And the other things we're doing, just to kind of mention, is we still have funding that's available for this summer. I know we're right in the middle of it, but we do have funding for summer programming. So if there are districts or entities, we really encourage partnerships in the community. We've got some great opportunities going on with focus on reading and math. And there are often opportunities that there are programs that are currently running, but could really take a subset of what they're doing. They're running a cooking program, they're running a welding program for this summer, they're running a boot camp to move into 9th grade, or a boot camp to move into middle school, or even going into college. Those summer programming efforts can be enhanced with the funding that we have on what's called the Extended and Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant. So we're encouraging districts, if they have any questions on those, just contact a member of the ESSER team. We will literally walk through the application with them. We can help work through that and help them be successful in using those fundings. Again, that part as we go to a closeout process in ESSER. Are there any questions from anyone?
So Wendy, I just have one. If you would please share how we're communicating with our districts, and then also recognizing that we have new trustees, we have new superintendents and new clerks across our state. But if you could just share how we personalize with our 400 districts.
So in the emails that we've been sending out on closeout, we have been sending those to the trustee chair, to the superintendents, and to the clerk. So we've kind of hit across all three of those branches. And as we continue to do that, we are keeping sort of an archive of all that communication because, of course, as staff change, the ability to go back as a new clerk or a new superintendent and go, so what was the communication that happened with my predecessor? And so we've got a list of all of those available. We also have something that we think has been very useful, which is a composite of all the compasses. So it's an annual view. And of course, because it's just a PDF file, you can search for anything in it. And it gives you a historical content of, when did these things get announced? Where are the forms that I need to go look at? And that's an annual as well as a monthly. So we've got the compass, we've got individualized emails that are going out. And then last but not least, and thank you, Superintendent, for reminding about this, our team is available Monday through Saturday straight through. And we often work, we've got, especially when it's this hot, we've got clerks and superintendents who are working those flexible hours. Our team's available for that. So they can, call and say, I need to work on this grant. I need to work on this cash request at 7 o'clock, and we can work with them on it. So trying to keep all of the communication avenues open for people.
Thank you. And then just one last update. And I know this number is fluid, but how much monies have been expended for ESSER 3 at this point? In other words, let's look at the glass that's half empty rather than half full.
So on our website, we have a thermometer, and that thermometer really shows what the spend down is. And so we've spent, out of the 382,000, we've got about 82 million, excuse me. We've spent about 80% of that. So we've got about 105 million still to spend. So we've really spent, close to 300 million of that.
And the pronoun we is the school districts, because we pretty much set up a bank account and for them to draw down and then to share what those expenditures are as they go through their process. The other part is, as you said, that you are available, 6 days a week, which the flexibility is extremely important for our field. When it comes to the amendment process, we have had a lot of amendments, and I believe that is another part of the flexibility or the fluid aspect of what we are doing because of the allowable uses that are annotated in this grant.
Absolutely, Superintendent. So one of the conversations we continue to have with new school superintendents is a new person will come on board. They'll be talking to the trustees and they'll say, we had planned on this. This is what we've got to spend, and this is how it's tagged, but are we able to change it? And so that discussion is a really positive one. And we've been able to go back to superintendents and say, absolutely, you can change it. The point of an amendable grant is to allow you the flexibility to look at what's been done, to evaluate what's been done, and say, now I'm going to make adjustments. And some of those adjustments have been great. That's part of the positive side of what our team does, is being able to have those open conversations about use of funds. It's really a flexible grant. And we frequently say, tell us what you want to do, and we'll help you figure out which part of the funding stream is most appropriate for that. And it's a good discussion.
Thank you. I know I took up this time. Is there anybody that would like to ask any questions, Wendy or her team? Perfect. I know we'll be at the Board of Public Ed tomorrow, so there can be more information that is shared. Thank you, Wendy. Enjoy the beautiful day.
Thank you.
Let's go on then to Christy. Christy is going to discuss House Bill 393, and we did have some court action on that, and we are in partnership with the Board of Public Ed through the ESA, I believe. So, Christy?
Yep. Good morning, everyone. Yes, our legislative update for House Bill 393, that is our Special Needs Education Savings Account program here in Montana. And at the end of June, there was a hearing, an injunction hearing brought against House Bill 393, but the district court made a decision last week not to enjoin the program. So we are business as usual moving forward with the implementation of the Special Needs Education Savings Account program. As of right now, we have 23 students who applied and were determined eligible for this program. They've been signing contracts, and we have 19 contracts signed with eligible students. All districts who have had eligible students, in their district, received an email letting them know they had eligible student or students in their district. And we will follow up on August, the beginning of August, to all districts with that very specific information of those students in order for those school districts to understand how to remit that money back to the OPI after they get their first base aid payment in August. And so we will be following up with that specific fiscal information. But all the districts that do have eligible students have been notified by us. If you have any questions on that, always reach out and let us know. And just this is for specifically, just as that reminder for students, for families of students with disabilities, they have to have one of the 13 IDEA designations to participate in this program. And we've been working closely with our SPED department here and with families and with our ESA steering committee to make sure that those applications and the eligibility requirements were met. And we've gone forward, like I said, with we have 19 contracts in place right now. Does anyone have any questions about the ESA program for me right now?
Christy, do you see any hands up?
I don't see any from my view.
Okay. One of the things that I know, because I've been signing letters to the parents within this, that it's quite the breadth. We have them in Indian country. We have them in very rural. We have them, not a lot of them in our larger school districts, but we have them in a very unique spread across our state with these 19 applications. And the other aspect is, yes, there's communication to the families because this is a new program, but it's incumbent upon us also to talk to our school leaders and have them understand what is happening here, whether to look at it as a budget item or also to remediate any of their programming that they have or have a relationship with families. So I think that's like a double-edged sword that we're walking on. The agency is at this point, and it's something that's very, very new. So any questions at all for Christy on ESA? All right, let's move into data modernization. I'd like to introduce Julia. Julia has come to the OPI, and I know you're here. If you'd like to go and introduce yourself and share where we're going to be with data modernization.
I would love to. So my name is Julia Caro, and my focus at the OPI is data modernization. And I'm excited about the progress that we're making in PowerSchool, and I was hoping to share that we have some points to share here. Our activities include, we have ongoing data replication from Infinite Campus edition, or the state edition, to the PowerSchool Connected Intelligence. OPI staff are continuing to meet with the steering committee of key district staff, and we're receiving valuable feedback on the project and data collections. We presented to the PowerSchool user group on June 18th to provide updates on the project. And OPI staff, along with PowerSchool, will be presenting updates to school leaders at the SAM Administrators Institute conference on the 24th of July, and there will be a demo provided. we're hoping to simplify the data reporting process for the Power School SIS schools, but we're still in development to determine the solution there. And we've also identified GEMS as another data source for replication into connected intelligence, and we'll do that through VPN. And that work, that GEMS replication, is being completed now. OPI is an active participant in the Education and Workforce Data Governing Committee, and we've been attending those ongoing meetings of the 3 working groups. And analysis is still in progress for the additional modules of Unified Insights, student readiness, risk analysis, and community engagement. And OPI provided a demo of the GEM system to Power School so that we could assess with them the current functionality and how community engagement will proceed. And also, we sent out a survey about GEMS to schools on June 28th. And I think Anna has that link that we can share. And finally, we're identifying and testing possible security solutions for school user access to Unified Insights. So that is where we're at now. And I've just begun working here in June, and I'm extremely excited to be here and work on these projects.
Thank you. And I see that Anna's here as well, who has been part of
Yes.
this project as we move through it. Just as a reminder, this is a 8 million plus project with the OPI for better understanding of data that is pulled from our school districts and being able to be utilized not only by government, other resources of other agencies, but also data that might be utilized in an easier fashion by either school districts themselves or by the general public. So this process is in play, and we've been using our ESSER COVID money through legislation in order to enact data modernization.
Yes. Thank you so much. And the team has been fantastic getting me up to speed. So I'm very grateful.
Excellent. So Julia, if you would, in the chat box, put your email address. So if anyone has any question, that they can go
Absolutely.
ahead and do this as we move forward into our next presentation. Okay.
you.
Thank you. No other questions on data modernization? Excellent. I know, again, this will be not a duplication, but it'll be very similar to what we present to the Board of Public Education tomorrow. Let's go into the accreditation. Crystal Andrews. Hey, and I know that tomorrow at the Board of Public Education, and I see that McCall is on, we have renamed this Board of Public Education meeting the Crystal Andrews Day. So, since she has so many presentations. So Crystal, let's go ahead and discuss what's happening in accreditation.
Good morning, Superintendent. Thank you. So you are correct. I will be sharing all this information with the board this week. But today the focus is on our accreditation think tank for the second year of our new process. We have had through this first year's process and working with districts, administrators volunteering. So we've had 23 administrators and our partners. McCall is here and she's part of our think tank as well. And so this think tank, we got together in April for the first meeting to sort of set the stage, talk through some questions. And I know some of this font is really small, but Brian will share with you all these slides. But in that first meeting, we talked about the 3-year cycle. That is our goal, is to move into those 3-year cycles and what remaining components should be part of the assurance standards and that student performance piece. It was decided to wait on the 3-year cycle and for the 24-25 school year, so this upcoming year, do something similar as to what we did this first year. And I say similar with emphasis because it will be different. We'll be looking at different parts of the assurance standards. So if you can scroll down a little, please, Brian. In May, our meetings were to talk through those areas, academic programming, proficiency-based learning models, educator effectiveness, and school climate. And so what we did is we talked through what that looks like in rule, because obviously all of these changes have come from the Chapter 55 revisions. So the areas in each of those categories and how we could ask for the information. You know, we have talked with districts in the think tank. You know, they said a lot of narrative this first year, a lot of uploading. And so we're trying to think through, you know, what can we do to provide, you know, the opportunity for districts to give us the information that is needed, but maybe in a different way. So is there a way in some of the areas to have a drop down, or, you know, we don't want it just to be check the box like it used to be. You know, we're moving away from that. However, we are listening to districts and their concern with how much time it took, or, you know, how much writing it was. So we are meeting again starting July 25th with the think tank. We gave some little time off in the summer. We're working on that criterion reference guide, which is where the rubrics can be found for the accreditation process. So we'll be working with the think tank to form those rubrics for these new areas, and sort of setting the stage for the second year. So I will bring more information plus this information to the board in the next few days. It is an information item in July, and then in September, they will be voting on what the year 2 process looks like. So all of this is, you know, we've been vetting it, we've been working with districts, we've been working with our partners, but we will not seek that final approval until the September board meeting. So we will have the criterion reference guide, which is really, we called it just that go-to guide for districts to understand what they need to do for the accreditation process. And so we'll get that worked on. We'll work on that in July and August, and hopefully have it ready. So when the board says we are good to go in September, we can get it out to districts and start working with them as we did this past year.
Perfect. Any questions for Crystal? Lots of kudos. I think this model of the think tank and asking our schools, not just the negative things, but also some of the positive things that change happens. Change is not easy, regardless of what it might be. If you're changing your socks, or if you're changing accreditation process here. And I know with our partners, the Board of Education, that they will also be looking at, is there going to be any way to amend it? Is there any appeal process? Is there any opportunity for to validate? In other words, after there has been some sort of an incursion that we know all school districts receive. But again, this is something that, as the think tank is working through, it's not government or the government agency doing things to schools. This is something that we are working with to try to reconcile and understand. Crystal, anything else to add on the accreditation?
Not at this time. I think after the next few days, we'll gain a lot of information from the board, more feedback. And so from there, we'll just continue to work. And I would look forward to coming back next month and share what we learned.
Excellent. If you want to just share real quick, and I know it's not a bullet point for the agenda, but what we are offering the board this next coming 2 days regarding the accreditation process and how it's been with schools for a while.
Yeah, there are many agenda items. I know there's a panel on chapter 55 and looking through, you know, how it's, you know, how this first year has gone. And then a panel on this first year's process. We'll be presenting sort of what I have here today, the think tank, and what they're thinking through, and what we're hoping that second year process will be. McCall, help me out. I think there's one more item. Oh, and then the accreditation of schools for this past year. We have shared with schools their accreditation status through the Teach Montana system. Right now, the information is embargoed, so they can see what their scores are. We've been talking with schools what that looks like. Once it goes to the board and there is approval or action on what their status, then the information will go to the districts with a lot more. So there will be comments with a lot of the areas. So this past year, it's just a wealth of knowledge for districts to really see how they scored, but not only that, but some really robust information on how they could improve or where they've scored well. So my team has been working tirelessly on getting that cleaned up, making sure it's, you know, good to go for districts so that they can use that in the future. So that will come after the board meeting this week.
Thank you. I don't know, McCall, if you'd like to add anything more, or if anyone else would like to add?
Don't have anything to add, just gonna be a big 3 days. I'll put the link to the board agenda in the chat if anyone's interested.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Thank you, Crystal. Looking forward to the next couple days of being Crystal Andrews Day with the Board of Public Ed. So let's go on and visit with MAST. So Crystal Smith, let's talk about where we are. I mean, I just came back from DC and discussing with multiple people regarding innovation of assessments, and Montana is truly leading the way. And I am grateful for the Department of Education's partnership in recognizing that innovation needed to happen. But more so, I'm grateful to these classroom teachers that have really raised their hand and said, you know, in the previous 2 years, that they are ready for something unique and different to acknowledge their teaching and acknowledge also the student learning. So let's talk about where we are as we go into our third year of the Montana Aligned Student Assessment Test.
Thank you, Superintendent, and good morning to everyone. Yeah, I think the same sentiment was echoed. I spent a little time in Seattle, our team, the end of June at the CTSO conference, and it was evident that Montana truly is leading the way in innovation. Several states looking at what innovative assessments look like, how they can possibly begin down that journey. Some states already are, but when you look at the final end line of making it through peer review and what it takes to be able to be prepared and ready for our peer review deadline of December 2025, Montana is clearly the leader of the pack when it comes to this work. That's very exciting, you know, for all states. So for those of you who might be new, just wanted to provide this grounding information on the Montana Aligned to Standards 3-year testlet schedule for next year. Remember, a 3-year assessment is a variety of shorter testlets that are proctored throughout the year instead of an end-of-year one-time summative assessment. From feedback of our pilot districts in this last year of piloting, we have shortened the number of testing windows to actually 3 windows that will be used to generate a student summative score at the end of the school year, which will be used for the federal accountability measures, but then also elongating the actual windows to 6 weeks that really provides for flexibility at the school level and even the classroom level based on where students are within each of these windows, and allowing classroom teachers to determine what day and what time would be best to proctor the different testlets that are assigned in each of these windows. So Brian, if you'd go ahead and move to the next slide, please. Just another view of it. So overall, there are 7 ELA testlets. 2 are proctored in that first window, beginning of year literary and informational. So the students are assessed for ELA, English Language Arts, the same standards over and over again, but they're increasing in complexity. And then because we do value the teaching of writing and the assessment of writing, there is that ELA performance task found in window 2 as well. Math, there's some very unique flexibility and opportunities in this assessment model. There are a total of 12 math testlets that are created based on clusters of Montana state standards. And then at the school level, leaders and teachers have the opportunity to determine which testlets they want to give within each of the 3 different testing windows. This again allows our testing model to align to the unique scope and sequences that we have found in data gathering, that there are several scope and sequences found around the state for the way that math is being taught on any given grade level. So this unique personalization of pacing as well as alignment is critical to this assessment model. And then again, from the feedback that we heard from our piloting districts in this most recent year, teachers had talked about making testlets as short and as quick as possible. So in any good assessment model, you field test items that are found to help continue to generate a strong and healthy test item bank. As we continue to grow, we needed to field test performance tasks, and in order for that peer review deadline, being able to have some research mechanisms as well to really demonstrate what a 3-year does for the ability to provide instructional utility to teachers to help students learn best. And so we have pulled all of those field test items out, that research item out, and field testing of the performance tasks, and those will be found in a much shorter window 4. That information will not be used for the student summative score, but we are sharing the wealth of that lift throughout all of our students in the state of Montana. So each student in grades 3 through 8 will only take one field testlet, and there'll be a variety of different ones of those. So this is what our blueprint looks like for the 24-25 school year. Other way, Brian. Thank you. The rest of the presentation this morning is really focused on what our assessment team is doing to support our stakeholders, support the field. So I'm just going to run through a plethora of support opportunities that we have developed, scheduled, and actually already communicated out to the field. The first one is a scheduler tool support. So in order to align those math testlets, those 12 testlets in the 3 testing windows, there is a scheduler tool that will go live on July 22nd. We are having a collaborative training between the OPI assessment team, our New Meridian team, which is our testing vendor, as well as ATS, which is the KITE testing platform, to support all stakeholders, all districts who might need some or want some training on that tool. Of course, it will be recorded so folks can access that when they do start kicking back into the school year. And then following that collaborative training, we are holding 17 different office hour opportunities where districts can either join an informal office hour or schedule a unique one for their school personnel to ensure that we are providing the support that we need for each of our districts, depending on what their level of understanding is of the SCORE, the schedule tool. Next slide, Brian. We've provided this document on our last roadshow that when we hit the road in early April to start planting the seeds is what this looks like. So we also have it published on our website, but it's really trying to get this into the hands of our testing coordinators as well as classroom teachers to say, what are the units that you're teaching? What standards do they cover? And then being able to align those to our testlets. We've had a lot of districts and heard from a lot of districts as we were at the Summer Institute that many teachers already have this done, right? So they're ready to, when that testing scheduler tool goes live, they are ready to get it implemented and input and be ready to print their unique blueprint for each school. But this is the paper version of the support that we have provided moving into that scheduler tool becoming live on July 22nd. Next slide, please. We also are offering several in-person learning opportunities. So I know that our assessment team will be in Great Falls attending the Hooterite Educator Conference in early August, being able to help support those folks, as well as we are hitting the road again. We have 9 roadshow locations around the state beginning August 8th, running through August, I want to say 15th or 16th. So really covering the state, again, providing in-person support, very less visionary and really more the technicalities of what districts need to do to ensure that they have the systems in place to be ready to assess in early October for the first assessment window instead of waiting till April. Next slide. We're also holding many virtual learning opportunities. We are hosting another Math Summit. If you remember, February 28th was our first full day Math Summit, providing role-like sessions, providing opportunities for districts based on no experience with math, a pilot district, or maybe that Form B district. But this is really about ensuring that all folks have the same level of information and knowledge, again, being ready to state tests beginning in October. Again, we have those roadshow locations. And then our assessment team will be holding 2 training webinars for really the technicalities of rostering students, adding PNP settings, which is for accommodations, and all of the nuances of assessment to make sure that every student has the support that they need to be able to perform their absolute best in a testing model. And then finally, I want to close with our range finding. So our range finding is gathering of Montana leaders and teachers to work on providing exemplar papers, practice sets, and the qualifications and rubrics necessary to score the performance tasks for ELA, both in this upcoming year and then moving forward. So we have recruited about 30 Montana teachers from around the state. They'll be joining our New Meridian partners and our OPI team in Bozeman, the 13th through the 15th, to do that heavy lift of work to ensure that once those performance tasks are completed in that second testing window, that we will have human scorers ready to use the work and the documents that are created in this range finding gathering to be assessing those performance tasks and being able to get those scores back to teachers in a timely fashion. And with that, I am available to answer any questions that you may have.
Any hands up for Crystal? Lots of work. And yes, from coast to coast, Montana is being recognized that we are leading the way in, how do I want to say, in the making sure that teaching and learning is number one in the classroom, and also trying to figure out new tools on how to make sure that the implementation is done with ease and efficiency, but also with validity. So if no other things, I know you'll be on as well, Crystal, tomorrow with the Board of Public Ed or the following day. So great presentation. All of these materials will be sent to you directly following the meeting as well, anyone that's on this list. Let's move in then to school improvement, which has got, well, it's accountability and differentiation. I know you've been waiting for a while, Danny, so take us away. And I believe we have others on your team that are going to be available for this as well. Good morning, John. Good to see you as well.
Good morning, everyone. Patrick Cates, Senior Manager, who was on the agenda, is unable to join us today. So myself, as the state's Director of Special Education, will share a few things with you. Are you able to show show Brian? Well, I will go ahead and get started with it, even though oh,
here it comes. You know, that's the one thing we do really well in education is we wait for answers from our students. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Thank you. Okay, so we were asked to share, excuse me, what our monitoring, so compliance monitoring is looking like and where it's going in the future. So it'll be our results-based accountability, or referred to as differentiated monitoring. There you go. The previous monitoring that we had done included pre-monitoring training, so the items we're looking for. So we speak with our school districts and we tell them the items that we're looking for, that'll be reviewed, how to write the IEPs, other documents such as the evaluation reports, all of those. Then we'd go on site or do a virtual site file review. So reviewing all the files from referral to the permission to test, to the results of that, into the IEP, and so on and so forth. We looked for compliance with state and federal regulations. And then we'd have a debrief with the teachers whose files we reviewed, and sometimes with the special education directors as well. Then they had an opportunity, the teachers had an opportunity to correct any items of non-compliance. Any of those items that were not corrected during a certain time frame were then, the district was then given corrective action plans, which extended it to up to 1 year to make those additional corrections or submit additional documentation to us. Once all of those corrections were made, we then issued a final letter saying, you know, everything's been submitted within 1 year. We'll see you again in 5 years. Next slide. Oh, thanks, Brian. This year, we're going to change it up a little bit because we want to include more data before we start monitoring, essentially to create a data profile. So some of the things will still remain, such as the pre-monitoring, but this time the OPI is going to be reviewing data. So they're going to look at the special educations, the compliance monitors, excuse me, which are on John's team. They'll be looking at the special education determination letter, which incorporates 6 points. We'll also review the special education risk assessment that incorporates their previous programmatic monitoring that John and his team do, dispute resolution, timely data submission, and fiscal. And then the review of the district indicator data as well. Compiling all of that together to kind of give a district profile. It also allows our team the opportunity to target certain areas that might need training or technical assistance. We're also going to start reviewing the district's practice policies and procedures specific to special education. We also plan to conduct some interviews, not just the debrief of here's what happened in the files that we saw, but actual interviews of how those teachers are teaching these kids, what are their schedules, speaking with administration, gen ed teachers, other potential stakeholders, just to kind of get a better overview of what isn't happening in that district. And then again, we'll still have the debrief, the technical assistance, any corrective actions, and the closeout letters. Okay. These are a list of all the districts and cooperatives that will be monitored during this next school year. As you can see, we have 5 cooperatives, which they include anywhere from 6 districts all the way up to about 18, 19 districts in their cooperative. So we'll be reviewing all of those in this upcoming school year. With those districts, one of the things that we'll be doing is we'll be asking for their feedback. Brian, you're okay to go to the next one. It's fine too. Asking those districts for their feedback on the process that the new process that we're starting to slowly implement. Get their feedback, maybe adjust anything that we need within the monitoring moving forward for the 25-26 school year. We'll also be assisting our districts in editing their current practice policy and procedures manuals. We're helping them start to write one if they don't have the specific items we're looking for. And then in the future, it's possible that for the 25-26 school year, we'll be moving to a tiered monitoring system. That would incorporate all of the review of the data that we have and allow us the opportunity to see which schools might need to be moved up in districts, which districts or co-ops might need to be moved up in the monitoring cycle. Right now, they're monitored once every 5 years, but based on all of the other data that we'll be collecting, we may end up having to move them up in the cycle rather than waiting 2 or 3 years. So we're looking more into that. Any questions? Should you have any further questions, you can contact John Gorton, myself, or Patrick. Was there anything, John, that you would like to add?
I just wanted to add, this includes a 3-year cycle for the state-sponsored programs as well. So the same set of criteria that Danny just outlined would apply towards those entities that are on the 3-year cycle, not just the 5.
Yes, so the state funded or the state operated. So thinking of ShoDare, the group homes, a couple of group homes that have joined us, and then
MSDB,
yes,
and the Department of Corrections and so on.
Yes.
Any other further questions on this? And I know there's a purpose and a reason why, and John or Danny, you can explain, why we're changing our model at this point.
Yes, so this has been something that John and his team have been discussing for a couple of years, wanting to gather more information, not just doing a sit down review of the files and nothing else. So they've decided that, this is kind of the route that they want to go. In addition to that, OSEP, the Office of Special Education Programs, so the federal government, They came in June of 2023 and they did their own monitoring of us. They did interviews. I mean, everything basically that we're saying we're going to implement are things that they did. And what came out of that report is that we need to do more than just reviewing of the files. We need to incorporate other pieces, such as the data gathering, looking at the fiscal, the dispute resolution more closely. And so that was the perfect opportunity for us to be able to say, hey, we're going to start implementing this.
Thank you, Danny. Again, coming back to my original statement earlier on in our meeting, saying that we don't want government to do things to schools. We want to also make sure that part of this process has we've been asking our leaders in special education as well. How do we do this? How do we implement this with efficiency and not adding more burden onto any of our school districts, but also recognizing data. And I believe that if we can make data-informed decisions as adults, our children are going to have a better pathway forward. As we do know that special education is recognized not just federally, but it's in every single school district that we have in Montana. So any discussion or any questions at all regarding special education or anything on our agenda? Anyone would like to add anything that is not on our agenda to be able to visit with? Okay, well, thank you very much for being patient with us. There are things in the chat if you'd like to grab those before we conclude. If not, Brian will be sending out any of the documents that we've shared with today. Blessings to all. Looking forward to a wonderful remainder of the summer. School doors are opening very shortly, so let's all be safe out there. Blessings. Thank you.